Welcome, everyone, back to another episode of the Voodoo podcast. I am honored to be joined by one of the founding members of the Chicago Haunt Builders. His home haunt is located in Lake in the Hills and is called Haunt 31. If you're in the Illinois haunt industry community and you haven't heard of the legend of Haunt 31, you've got to be living under a rock. He's also helped out with the Gobert's Haunted House. And I have to say, I am a big fan of his Christmas display as well, mostly due to the Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews Santa cutouts that are in the windows. But welcome to the Voodoo podcast, Toby Wrolson.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Did I miss anything in that intro? Feel free to let the viewers know a little bit more about everything that you do or are a part of that I might have missed there.
No, you touched on the Goberts. So I built the props around their half-mile train ride, which is all outdoors. I built their entire haunted house, which I believe is 12 rooms as well, and their shooting gallery. So you're shooting tennis balls at my props as well.
Nice.
And each year we add more and build, maintain, whatever. So a good relationship with them. And then Haunt 31, you hit it. I think this is year 24, I think, for us.
Holy cow. Well, I am 25, just to kind of put that into perspective. So you guys have been doing this for quite a long time. You are, in my book, professionals. But when you first started Haunt 31, did you know that it was going to grow to become this massive?
No. The only reason we had any inkling, or the only reason it's Haunt 31, so a lot of people use their street address, right? We almost went Haunt 340, which is our address. But
Okay.
I said, someday we might want to move. And if you said everything with your street address and then you move, you're starting over. So we figured, you know what, we're going to go Haunt 31. Halloween's on the 31st. It made sense. The website was available. The license plates were available. So we ran with it. And it's good. It's grown out of control. And if we ever move, we can take that with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you mentioned the license plate. I know a lot of people customize their plates for I think Holiday Habits. I think they have theirs as custom license plates and a couple others. Especially there are some places that rent out a whole hearse and then they make it the license plate of the hearse as well, or just even own a hearse. We here at Voodoo on Vassar, we've always thought of, if we were to do because ours is a full walkthrough, kind of like your garage, and we would move it and keep the Voodoo title. It wouldn't necessarily be on Vassar anymore, but yeah, we had to do a little bit of thinking on that one as well. So I totally understand that.
Yeah, we have Haunt 31 on one car and we have Haunted House on the other car.
Nice, very cool. Yeah, I was gonna ask you where the 31. I always just thought 31st day of the month too, which is
It worked
Halloween
out well.
itself. So yeah, absolutely. Um, I mentioned that the origins of Chicago Haunt Builders, the listeners and myself may have learned a little bit about that from when we had Jim Slanker on the podcast. But what do you remember about the early days that really kind of widens the scope and changes the perspective of how people see Chicago Haunt Builders today?
So Chicago Haunt Builders has definitely morphed into something different. It was originally just a build group. We were a build group. It started with another name. The leader at that point was a diehard party person, and all they wanted to do was to get together and be social. The build was just kind of in the way. We really, I mean, myself and a crew of diehards, we want to build. That's the goal, right? We want to teach people what we know. We want to learn what other people know. We want to build. So I finally got fed up one day at work, and I created Chicago Haunt Builders. I think there were 58 people, I think, originally in the old group, and I think 57 defected within like 24 hours. We had a T-shirt design. We had T-shirts on order. Like, it happened fast. And then we started building. We just started. It was close knit. It started with, if you didn't participate in a build in a year, we'd kick you out. You could always come back, but I mean, it was really geared towards building. We would have 3 to 5 builds a year, and we'd hope that you would at least come to one, even if you just hung out. It has changed. Now it's kind of an open door. Jim has changed it to the Facebook group. We really let almost anyone in unless they're spam or something like that, But no, when we let anybody in, there's a ton of lurkers. We can't expect everybody to come to builds. The dynamic has changed to more of just a hangout but really we need to keep it as a build group. It's fine that people hang out. It's fun that we have a lot of social events and stuff. But the key there is to build, right? We need to share that.
Yeah.
And when you say build doesn't just mean I'm going to take pieces of something and put it together. It could be I buy something at Home Depot and I modify it to make it mine, right? Like there's
Yeah.
so many cool props now. So it people are like, oh, I bought this. I'm not a part of the group. No, you absolutely are. It's just it's yours now. How do you display it? How do you present it? Whatever.
I had just spoken the last episode to the creative director and producer of Terror Roulette that's opening up in South Barrington, and they were telling me the same thing: is that you buy a prop, always kind of make it your own, whether it's how you display it or how you change it and make it your own so that it's not the same. And I've mentioned this in other episodes too, is the haunt builders do a great job at that, to not to pat ourselves on the back, but more so the ones that like you said go to the actual builds. I haven't really made it out to many myself, but the ones who are getting those I forget what you guys call them, the watchers, is it the with the
Oh,
lantern
right,
that,
the lurker. That was yeah.
yeah, and those builds, that's all time one of my favorite props that the Chicago Haunt Builders come together and build, because you can display him in so many different, I mean, most of the time that skeleton, he's on the top part of a casket, but it can be coming out of a ground, out of one of your fence posts, if you have like those tall wide, either they're made out of foam or wood, but the fence post, and he's up there with the lantern, and he spins around, so everybody does a little bit of a different display with that creature, so you'll see it at all these houses, but it'll be everybody's own personal creative touch to it, which is very nice.
Yeah, so we have
um
that Haunt Builders haunt list, which has gotten really big. But last year,
yeah.
I think I was like 112 of the people in our group. Lunchtime, after work, nights and weekends. During the day, I can't get out at night, obviously.
Right.
But I still, as a haunter, you know what it looks like at night if you see it during the day. And same thing, I saw the props that were made in the group. I'm like, oh, look at there's that, But you're right, it's different. How do they present it? How do they paint it? How do they finish it?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to mention, did you know that it would get so big to the point where that Chicago Haunt Builder, the list itself has 500 houses listed? And like you mentioned, there's a bunch of lurkers. That means that's not even everybody. That's not even people who are
No,
just there to socialize with us and enjoy the holiday. And then also there are people who have decorated houses and just don't want to list. So that 500 is just a subset of us, and oh my god, I have the list literally sitting here in front of me, and I can't wrap my head around it.
yeah. So I have printed the entire list for people every year, and I distribute 12, 15, whatever the double-sided pages are. I think this is the first just we're not the first year we're not. I think we're going to do just the QR code, and I might do some of the local ones because a lot of people are like, hey, I'm up here. Where do I go from
Right.
here? Within 20 miles or so. But we'll see. Obviously, the QR code is huge. People can grab it in their car. They can put it in their phone. And what's cool about the map is it shows you where you're at. So you can just say, hey, this one's close. Let me go see that. So
Yeah, you guys have a really saturated area up there, because there's a lot in Algonquin and Huntley, and there's so many really good ones up there to see. I know you probably got your kind of small knit community even within the Haunt Builders group with all of your uh, I'll call them neighbors, haunt neighbors, basically. But yeah, we always make it a point. I think this year we have you on the schedule for uh, Indigenous Peoples Day, Columbus Day, that Monday that we have
fun
off.
you have a
That
schedule.
Yeah. So yeah, we try to plan the routes accordingly, and get it to like 10 or 15 houses in a night on the nights that we're off. But how is that community up there north by you?
It's pretty good. I mean, it's not, it's funny because you think of like high school, right? With the little cliques of people. Well, it's
Yeah,
definitely
kind
not.
of.
I mean,
No.
obviously, because we're close, we help one another with some things. Holiday Habits is right up the street. Halloween Town, not too far away. He's traveling a lot for work, so just what can you do to help him and that kind of thing. Um, Gavin, I don't know what the name of his font is, but obviously he's a kid in the group up in Crystal Lake, not too far.
Yeah.
He helps me put up ours. I go there and help him with things. So it's convenient because we're close, but I'm sure that same dynamic is in each area, right? I'm sure the people around Jim Slanks are the same way.
Yeah.
Southern Illinois are the same way. I mean, it's just because you're there. The disappointing part is people can't travel as easily, right? The more their haunt grows, they're like me, the harder it is to get out. So right now they might be able to, but 3 years from now they can't. So I guess my advice to anybody just starting out is enjoy it while you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we are more actor driven, actor based. So when we open up and we're the full walkthrough, we only do it like 12 nights a year, but we're building from September. Last year was actually from August, but we're building from September, and then we take those first 2 weeks of October, and even so kind of the stuff that's open that last week of September to really go out and enjoy that kind of stuff. But as the years have gone on, even this year, we're starting to feel it a little bit where the more we build up, like you said, it's harder and harder to get out to go see the other things. So yeah, there is quite a bit of that, but we still make it a point. It's the way I even got into this. My tradition, I've mentioned it previously, is that my dad and I always used to go to the southern houses. We were in Westchester, and there was always Mayhem on Mansfield in Burbank,
Yeah.
and the Nephilim and Spirits on Spro came later, but you had like Hell's Corner and Ghosts in the Grave, all these other ones that were in those south suburbs, Freaky Frights on Forest Avenue, and I'm going to touch on them in just a moment. But I haven't really known the northern crew, so to speak, until just a couple. It might even be a decade now that we've been going up to see your display and everybody else, but more so now that I'm in Schaumburg, and we're kind of in the middle of everything. So
You're lucky in
like
the
I
middle,
was
yeah.
like I was saying, we were able to plan those routes a little nicer, and then take a day where we go north or take a day where we go south. But with how busy the schedule gets and how busy you get, like you said, you can't go anywhere. You have something unique because you have half of your street blocked off due to how much foot traffic that you get. And I talk about how you've been around for 24 years is what you mentioned, and how that community, everything pops up, and you're starting to help somebody else with their haunt. Did you I've only seen this done a couple times with Freaky Frights on Forest, which I just mentioned, Shirley's House of the Dead in Orland Park, and then even Jim Slanker himself with Canyon Trail a little bit. But I know there was a serious incident that kind of called for this, but this is also a testament to how popular your setup is and how many people you get walking through yours a year.
Yeah, I mean, the community treats it as an event, right? So the police put up no parking signs on one entire side of the street, almost for a mile. They want to make sure that people are safe, not only walking and parking. I mean, it's a residential area. If you park on both sides of the street and then cars are trying to get through, it's a hazard. Plus, you have people trying to cross the street. So the police definitely help out. They patrol and they ticket because of that. They ticket for safety, right? People are in front of fire hydrants, in front of people's driveways. They're gonna walk up first, and they'll try to see if they can figure out whose car it is and tell them to move. And if not, they're gonna ticket. The busy nights, we've had the police stand on the end of our driveway, and then at first you freak out. Oh my gosh, they're gonna shut us down. And it turns out they're just here to hang out. They're like, hey, you know what? There's so many people. The opportunity of something happening is there. We're gonna hang out. So the community supports it. The city loves it. I talked to the director of Parks and Recreation a few years back. They love it because of all the people that come. If you're in Lockport and you drive an hour and a half to get up here, you're gonna make an evening of it. You're gonna go to dinner, most likely in Lake in the Hills, and then you're gonna
Yeah.
come see us, and then head back. So the city's like, hey, bring it,
That is just, I mean, the whole concept of that is gotta feel a little bit self-rewarding and fulfilling, because that is just crazy how it's grown into that. What was the drive or maybe the thought process when it came to starting Haunt 31 and
So
compared to how it is now?
So Han 31 obviously started like everybody else. I think we had two great stuff, zombies that I had, squirted a bunch of great stuff into some clothing, and I had a two-story spider web that I tied together out of clothesline, some signs and some like plywood tombstones. You know the way everybody starts.
Yeah.
And the city, so Lake in the Hills, they still do it today, but they have a contest for the spookiest house. So I joined and I tied for scariest house. I'm like, what guy ties? That's losing. There's no tie. So
Yeah.
I spent every minute and every lunch break just searching, and that's where I found Halloween L. Now it's a Facebook group, but it used to be a email group on Yahoo. I found some of the others, Methods of Madness, Garage of Evil, some of the larger groups, and just started hanging out like the Chicago Haunt Builders does. I found the monster list of Halloween, which even though it's not updated, it's still there. And oh my gosh, there's so many projects. And I'll tell you, the thing that hooked me was Two Scary Guys. So the Two Scary Guys website has the Body Slinger, which was my first pneumatic ever. I copied it.
Okay.
And when the city came to judge, I was hanging out in the front of the window and I pushed a button and that thing came jumping out and the girls went running down the street and I'm like, I won. And I did. And you're hooked. It just kept going from there. That was the driving force, right, to win a contest.
Yeah.
Fast forward about 5 years in, and it was people coming and signing our guest book. This is the 5th year we've come. My family loves this. This is the 6th year, every single year, and hundreds of signatures in these guest books from people that are like, it's a family tradition, blah, blah, blah. I didn't have that, but as a child, I don't really have those types of memories. So for me to provide that for people, it doesn't matter how bad their childhood is at home. They come here, they're going to see it, enjoy it, and they'll remember coming every year for the rest of their life. So if I could build a Haunt 31 in every state across the country, I absolutely would. I don't charge. It's all at my dime. And I think a lot of the extreme haunters would as well. It's a community, I guess, gathering type thing.
Well, be careful there because knowing you would do it. You'd build in all 50 states and you'd be running all 50 of them at the same time.
Powerball ticket today, so who knows?
Yeah. One of the other questions going off of the whole creating the Haunt Builders thing is back at Midwest Haunters Convention this past summer, you went up to the booth and somebody brand new to the group, I'm sure, asked you if you wanted to be a part of it. How often do people not realize that you are the Haunt 31 guy?
It happens all the time. So yeah, we had mentioned that at Midwest Haunters, they said, hey, do you want to join Chicago Haunt Builders? And I'm kind of like, I started Chicago Haunt Builders. I'm like,
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it happens. I have a face for radio, right? So that this is a perfect thing, this podcast. So it works. But no, it's funny how many people know the haunt but don't know me. So I was in Roselle at work, and on Route 20, there's an Ace Hardware. I was just buying some screws that I do at lunch, and the people in front of us were buying something Halloween. I'm like, and I just made some comment, and she's like, "Oh, if you like Halloween, you have to go see this house. It's in Lake in the Hills, Drive." And I'm like, really? So it depends. I've had the same thing happen when I was down in Plainfield, where you're just talking with people. I actually just changed dentists. And I was talking to my new dentist and just again, what are your hobbies and stuff? Because she's new. And I'm like, oh, I'm big into Halloween. She's like, oh, I have the house you have to go see. And I'm like, really? And I'm just like, so she's telling me all about it. And I just let her do the whole thing. And she gets all done. And she goes, it's you, isn't it? Like, it was just so like, you can't even go to the dentist, but if I had a dollar, but
yeah, that's crazy. I think that house is really close nearby me. That's so funny. I live in the basement. Oh my gosh. That is hilarious.
I will say though, in communities now, neighbors don't talk to each other. I don't know how it is by you, but people move in, you wave your hand at them and that, but they're not talking. You're not out there conversing. You're not having a bonfire in the backyard. I will say the display has changed that. I think we're closer with our neighbors. People that are 2 blocks away will come in the middle of summer and just start talking. There was a guy here yesterday. He's actually quite a ways away, but his wife's from Transylvania. And he just stood and he talked to us about Transylvania and how she's impressed with our display. And just, and it's, I mentioned earlier in the podcast, it's a sense of community. And I think that's really what this whole thing is about, right? Just having people talk, because they just don't do that anymore. Everything's social media and hiding behind a screen.
Yeah. We have a pretty nice tight knit community. I mentioned before on the podcast there's a couple of new people that have moved in and they have newborns. So I'm always worried that what we do may, disrupt the family life, but no, everybody's been pretty good. And like you said, makes it a much more tight knit community here. We used to do block parties as well here, and we kind of went away from that. But yeah, it keeps everybody. We're in a cul-de-sac too, so we
Yeah.
kind of maybe have a leg up because we walk out the front door and these people are like right on top of us too. But yeah, you definitely start to see the community come together a little more, like especially when you're in a place like Schaumburg and all of a sudden you start to see other houses pop up and you're like, did I do that? And let me go meet these people. So definitely. And if you're impressing the Transylvanians, you're doing something right. They got the
Yeah.
vampires.
Well, and the logo that I mentioned, the little new bats on the fence, that's, I guess, that exact bat is very prominent on a lot of buildings and stuff. So it's
Okay,
just like
yeah.
you hit it right on the head. You chose the right thing. I'm like, all right, well, this is something I found online, but okay. So yeah,
Is there a way for you to track how many people you get a year foot traffic wise, or has it become so big now?
it has. So all of my sensors use a laser that goes across the sidewalk and it runs the props. So I have several
Okay.
methods of tracking. One, I track several of the props I have counters in. So every time the prop cycles, I count that prop.
Okay.
Obviously, somebody can see that 15 times, the count's off. So we'll do a divider depending on how many people we think have run around and use that number. The main number is right at the main sidewalk. It's the thinnest area of the entire haunt. I have a counter about waist level. And so when
Okay.
people come through, all it's doing is counting people. And I usually take that number each night and divide it by 3. I figure you're going to have the people that go around 1 time, and you're going to have the kids that go around 5 times. It averages out if I divide it by 3. Last year was just under 20,000 people walking through my front yard.
Wow.
I look at it as even if they weren't individuals, my props went 20,000 times. I had that many feet
Jeez.
on my lawn. The police had to deal with that many cars. So
That
it
is
is,
nuts.
regardless of how the number, it's still a real number of people walking down that sidewalk. So
So what I'm hearing is when I come visit you guys this year, I'm gonna have to find that tripwire and just run
I
my
just
foot through
stand
as
there,
many
right?
times as I
Right.
can.
Right.
Oh my gosh, that is
But you have to
insane.
find
I mean,
all of them. So
yeah, that is true. True. I'll just stand there for a couple hours and make sure it just goes off as many times as possible. But oh my goodness. Um, so I mean, I know Poison Props just came out with this Archangel creature that you've already had in
yeah,
your
that's
haunt
pretty
for
cool.
years. HellsGate just purchased one of those at Transworld. They were saying in one of their first Days of the Living Dead episodes. But was that how you got yours? And honestly, I think that is personally your coolest prop because of the audio that comes with it. And talk about setting that one up too. That one is intense.
Yeah, so he's up on top of the mausoleum. So again, it's how it's presented, right? 10 people can buy that prop and it's going to be
Right.
presented 10 different ways. In ours, it's above your head. You are walking through a building, and as you're walking through, this thing's above your head. So that in itself is really cool. And then the way that building is, it's all steel structure with shelves. And that mausoleum some days has real actors inside. So now you're distracted. You're watching the poison props up on top. You walk through, and all of a sudden you get another scare coming as you go through. Um, and again, it just depends on how it's presented. Um,
Yeah.
I personally don't think in our display it would fit anywhere else. Like that's where it belongs.
That is so cool. Yeah, they talk about the art of the scare and having the viewer lift their head up because then your neck's exposed, and that is kind of your vulnerable place. When you're off kilter is when you're looking up at something else, distracted, and not so much looking down, which is kind of weird because as my mom's pretty short, not to call her out, but when she is down here, sometimes I can scare her from up above, which is a hint for our haunt when I climb up on the roof, but I won't give too much away. I want to go back to yours. We are kind of in cahoots though, because you mentioned the contests, the community contests, and I know that you have a connection, family connection wise, with Matt Nosset over at Greenbrier
Yeah.
Cemetery. Who, of course, also does our Home Haunters hack every episode. And I know he was trying to reach out to you and me to then judge the Gilbert's
I
event.
am doing it this year, yes.
That is awesome. He had texted me a couple dates. I don't know if any of them worked for me. I'm going to try to work around it, but I'm excited to do that. But
Yeah,
how did
it's
you?
tough. I mean, the good news is it's still kind of small, so we can get out and do it. It's going to be a Sunday night, so I can get out and do it.
Okay.
Um, but it's exciting. I mean, when you think about it, it's exactly the reason that I got so big. People judged my haunt. I tied for first place. And like I said, what guy ties, right? Same
Yeah.
thing. These people are putting something in the yard. It doesn't matter if it's a single pumpkin or if it's a whole thing. They're trying, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah. How did you, was it Matt's dad and you? How is that
Yeah.
family
So
connection? I always forget.
Matt's dad Bob and I worked at a company years ago. He was
Okay.
inventory and I was quality and engineering. And we just started talking one day about Halloween. And I'm like, oh, you should come see what we do. And so he did. And he's like, oh my gosh. And then he started helping us because we had already started growing. And Matt actually had come many times. He was here um, acting. Actually, his first couple of years, he was acting in stilts, walking around the yard, scaring people. And he was a natural. He just absolutely loved it. And then fast forward, now he has his own family in his own house, and he's doing it as well. And again, that means we succeeded. You know,
Yeah.
it's the next generation is going to do it. His neighborhood is enjoying it. I'm sure because of the contest that he's part of, more people are jumping in. So
Took the words
yeah,
right out of my mouth. I was going to say the next generation, you're already influencing them.
it needs to. I mean, if it hasn't already, it needs to be bigger than Christmas. You know, Christmas is great, but it's very commercial. You mentioned our haunt for Christmas. It's different. You know, we kind of do the Nightmare Before Christmas thing. We have the skeleton Santa and the skeleton elves that are like taking lights off the tree versus putting them on. It's meant to be comical, not morbid in any way. But Christmas is so commercialized. You can just go buy a bunch of stuff and you throw it in your yard, and it's the same in everybody's yard. If you can be creative like you can for Halloween, why not do that? And I think that's why Halloween is so successful because you can, it's that creativity. Hey, look what I took, and I took this piece of foam, and look what I made, you know, and that's fantastic.
I've always talked about it as Halloween is easier because the weather, especially in our region, hopefully, knock on wood, is nicer than Christmas. Because when you're in the Christmas mode, it's snowing outside, it's cold, you don't want to get out of the car to see the display. But you put it in a really good way there that I guess subconsciously I've thought of, but never really kind of formulated that is that, yeah, it is a lot more commercialized and there is no art of a scare because there is no scare when it comes to Christmas typically. So you can't like build and construct something differently than how it's kind of sold in the store. I mean, yeah, you could still kind of customize it, I guess, if you were to put like, say something, uh, but like in the case I mentioned, you have your cutouts of Kane and Taves, but like unless you're putting like Black Hawk Santa hats on your little elves, like it's not really changing it up too much. So no, that's actually a really good way to think of it. I'm gonna have to add that to my argument when I argue with all my Christmas related friends.
And it's kind of sad because every year we're like, you know what, we're done with Halloween, we're not doing Christmas. I think of Jim Slanker and I go, you know what, this guy takes down like a storage unit full of stuff and puts
Yeah.
it right back up for Christmas. The least I can do is the little bit that I have. And so I do it again, you know, or then like next year I'm like, oh, I'm not going to do Christmas again. The weather's so lousy. And somebody's like, oh, we love your Christmas. I'm like, oh, I got to do it again. So yeah, it's tough. I don't know how Jim takes his down in January. That's got to be rough.
And to do both facades on the front of the house for both Halloween to make it look like a
Yep.
monster house and then to have it look like it's a candy cane gingerbread house, like, oh my God, that is just I don't know how they do that. And you brought up a good point there too. Is you talk about storage units. It's the question we get asked all the time. Where do you store everything? Well, you actually have. I hate asking this question, but you actually have a very interesting story. We kind of touched upon it earlier when we were talking about Go-Birds, but you actually have a storage locker with Go-Birds, right? How did that come to
I
be?
do. It's one of many, but yes. So
Oh gosh.
I started with everything in my attic in the garage. And if you visit again and you look up when you're in the garage, you're going to see blue laminated beams going across the ceiling. The reason those beams are there is early Halloween was actually collapsing my garage ceiling.
Oh
You
my
could look
gosh.
outside and you could see a dip in the roof because of all the weight on the trusses in the attic. We're actually pulling that section down. So I had to pull down walls, jack up the ceiling, put a glue laminated beam with supports, and it's a whole other thing, right? Um, Shortly after that, we moved into a 5x5 storage, which we paid for. quickly that became a 5 by 10, then a 10 by 10, then a 10 by 20. We now have a paid 10 by 30 storage unit. We have the garage, attic. All the tombstones are in the attic above our bedroom because they're foam, they're a good insulation value to keep us warm.
Yeah, right.
And then you mentioned the Goberts. The Goberts farm, I actually bought a 40-foot shipping container. It's 40 feet long, 9 feet tall. It's the extended version, and it's on their property. And as long as I work for them, I keep it there for free. And that is packed as well. This year, I'm actually adding the loft above my parents' barn. So they have it's like a 20 by 30 barn with a hay loft. So this summer, I cleaned out the hay loft and I blocked it to keep mice out. And things that aren't going to be worried about heat are going to go down there. So when you keep adding, you just got to find the space.
Yeah, holy cow. I mean, wow. I don't even, we still have just the garage, is what everybody asks. But as I tell everybody, a lot of this stuff gets reused throughout the year when we build a batting cage or an ice rink or, whatever craziness we're jumping into. But man, for some of you, we're at the point where we're thinking about one shed and you're already going like what, 3 different locations to store
another house, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm sure the wife was thrilled about the ceiling dipping in the garage too.
I fixed it before anything happened, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, because then instead of a storage unit, you'll be in a dog house. So,
Right. In fact, I think Matt's dad might have been here when we first noticed. We were hanging out on the driveway and kind of looked back and you could see the bow and we're like, something's not right there. So
yeah.
But that was a long time ago.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank goodness that it is all still up so that we could still come and enjoy. And speaking of the family, they join in on the fun as well. I know your sons like to come over and act. And what is it like for the wife and kids to be so immersed in the holiday as you guys are?
So it's funny. I was actually at the Goberts last Saturday with picking up another load from the storage unit. And the owner, Lloyd, came over to say hi. And he just looked right at my wife, Stephanie, was like, you're destined for sainthood. And I just had to laugh, right? Because here's a guy seeing her loading this trailer full of stuff, and he's been to the house, and he just knows. I'm not going to say she hates it. She actually hated Halloween when we met. She hates dressing up. She hates being scared. Won't go to haunted houses. But now that we do it at our house, she absolutely loves it. She likes going to the events, socializing with people. She likes having the people come to the house and just talking about what we do. It's just fun, right? I mean, it's just everybody enjoys it. The boys, obviously, they enjoy it. They have their friends come and act. My son came home last weekend from Kansas State University to help do some setup. He'll come one time in October just to enjoy a weekend and do some acting. And then my younger one is a junior in high school, and same thing. His friends are here, and I have a rule: if you don't help set up, you're not an actor. So I get a lot of help.
Good.
I mean, help is a loose term, right? They're high school kids, so there's a short attention span. But at least for the carrying and moving, and that it works really well.
We kind of had that rule last year with Voodoo, and we had to. Last year we had a different changeover in our group, so we had to kind of reestablish a core of our actual Voodoo on Vassar actors and builders and stuff like that. So I said, hey, if you haven't made it to a build by September 1st, because we started early last time, you are. We're going to boot you. No hard feelings, but we're booting you out of the group chat. You're not putting the work in. We did another set of cuts. I think it was halfway through September, or it was close to October. And now this year that we have a little bit more established of a core group that'll come and build, now we've kind of opened the door and we've said, okay, anybody that can just make it, we'll give you your working hours, and then we'll give you your acting hours as well. But anybody who's done it with us for a long stretch of time, or even just last year, knows that it's so much more fun when you get to acting if you've put in the work to build it. It's so much more fulfilling. And what we do is, we have the $5 donation when people walk in, and then we have a donation bin in the back. And we're very grateful at everybody that comes by and supports, because a lot of that funding then goes to the actors. and I track their hours. This year we're doing it a little differently. Build hours are worth double because it's actually all the heavy lifting and decorating and stuff like that
Okay.
compared to the acting hours, which, part of the enjoyment is actually acting. So we will weight it that way so that our builders actually get a little piece of the pie at the very end, which is great. But yeah, I like how
We're
you're doing that with the crew and putting the kids to work for sure.
and we're doing similar to you. So we track all the hours. In fact, this year is the first year. I want to do some better statistics on my website. How many trailer loads, how many square feet of storage, all that kind of stuff. So this year we've been tracking every single trailer load. We've been taking pictures of them as we bring them home. We've been tracking the hours of all the people that help set up within a few minutes or so. Because I estimated over 500 hours of setup, and I actually think I'm probably light. I think that's light. It might be double that. You just don't realize how many hours of just airlines and power and lighting and
Right.
touch-up painting, and I mean, you may, but a lot of people just don't. So yeah, this year we started tracking that. We counted all of our pieces of rebar, and just because I think it'd be really cool to have that stuff on the website.
You say I may, but even myself, after a certain point of however many hours of working, I look at it and I go, you know what, it's going to be in the darkness and nobody's going to see it, so we'll skip the touch ups over here. Let's just get to the big stuff. But man, that is a lot of work. When it
You
comes
say that,
to
so that the details matter. But this year I decided like 3 weeks ago that I'm going to get new fence finials for our fence. So my
okay,
son designed these little Haunt
oh
31 bats. They
wow,
actually they actually fit on the PVC perfectly, and it's a little bat design. It actually has our logo and our name right in the
that is
bottom.
so
Um,
cool.
the good news is I only need 430. Bad news is it was taking about 4 hours to print one. So I have behind me, there's three 3D printers running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I have my
Oh my,
friend in Fox Lake printing these 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We're over halfway. I'm hoping by the first week of October we'll have it all going. But that is one of the cool additions for this year. And then we added 4 new motorized props and 2 new pneumatic props as well. So
oh boy, all right. Well, so I have a 3D printer over here. It's a small one, and I have. Oh, it's right actually down here by my feet. I have yet to really use it. The creative juices just aren't flowing for me this year. I mean, we're setting it up different from how we have in the past because it's a walkthrough, so we still have to kind of keep it fresh, keep it new with scares. A little bit of it is the same. But as far as creating things from a 3D printer, I got this thing and I'm itching to use it, but it's just I haven't figured out. But honestly, if we don't, I might have to go count my fence posts and see if I can make something similar, and if I have the time to and the material as well, because that is intense. I was going to ask you if there's anything that visitors should expect to be new at Haunt 31, but you said 2 new animatronics.
yeah, there's 2 new pneumatic props. They're in the same scene, but there's 2 distinct pneumatic props, and then
Okay.
there's one, two, three, 4 more motorized props.
Wow. Oh my God. I
There's
don't even
other
know.
stuff, but everybody just wants the motion, so that's the motion stuff. There's other things as well, but
For those who have not been out to Haunt 31, I don't know where you're going to put all of this because the lawn is already completely covered on both the one side of the house, the front of the house, the other side of the house, the garage, the driveway, everything to you have. I mean, motors, hydraulics. You got the sprayers coming out of some of the skeletons so that people can take an extra shower. But you were also able to rig a sort of like exoskeleton to your 12-foot Home Depot skeletons to then make them move and talk. Where did you find the time and the materials to make all of these creatures come to life?
you know, I don't know, but I make it happen. I don't sleep, so obviously the haunt we put on ourselves. We take donations, but we only get a couple $100 in the season, and that's eaten up by pizza and stuff for the actors right
Yeah.
away. So that's gone. So in order to pay for it and pay for the storage and all that, I do side work, handyman on the side. I work obviously at the Go-Birds. I work full time. So when I'm not doing those things and I'm not with the family, I try to build stuff. I plan. I have a lot of stuff just stashed away, and hey, we can make this. You mentioned the 12 footers. The 12 footers are now closer to 14 feet. They have very little of the original frame is even available anymore. It's all
Oh,
new
yeah.
framework. They're dressed like Grim Reapers that are custom cloaks that have magnetic closures down the front. The frame between his legs is now tall enough for a 6-foot actor to hang out. And so while you're watching them talk to one another, an actor can come busting out from below. So again, it's that whole distraction thing.
Oh my gosh.
There may not be an actor in there. There might be an actor in one. There might be an actor in the other one. They might have actors in both of them. You never know. But yeah, it's an addition. So they now move their head left, right, up, down. They move their mouth and they move their arm.
Wow.
And they talk to each other.
Yeah. I did engineering all throughout high school and 1 year in college. And then, like I said, I have the 3D printer here, but I still struggle to wrap my mind around how you are able to animate all that stuff. And like I said, just finding the time to do all
I
that.
guess my advice to people is obviously try and reach out. Like Chicago Hunt Builders, I mean, that's one of many groups, but ask, do your searches first. You know, everybody in the group, especially the originals, and it doesn't matter what group, Haunters Hangout, Methods of Madness, Garage of Evil, Chicago Haunt Builders, it doesn't matter. Nobody wants to hear, how do I make a ghost? Google it or search the group, right? It's probably been posted 500 times. Search the group. But if it's not there, ask. Somebody's going to help you. One of the big things people forget is my biggest advice to anybody that starts getting larger, as you're setting up, prepare for the weather. Don't prepare at the end. Do it as you're setting up. So case in point, my two main pillars with a steel arch between the two, that's a structural component. That arch helps those pillars stay standing. There's 100 pounds of sand in each one. The perpendicular fencing on each side helps hold it. But even after it's set up, the first thing we do is we nail stakes in the ground and we put ratchet straps. When we open, those come off, but it's all set up. So if the wind is forecasted, we grab the straps, we can strap it down, it's ready, right? 12-foot skeletons. When we built those, the first thing we did was covertly at night, there may be 3 or 4 foot deep concrete posts in the ground. But yeah, they're not coming down. They're strapped to those posts. But we prepared for it. It's too late when the rain is falling. We have a canopy in the back. And because you mentioned our entire yard, our garage, most of our house. In the back, above the patio, I have a 10-foot by 30-foot canopy tent.
Okay.
That becomes my garage. My weld shop, my tools, bicycles, everything that we don't need in the garage anymore are now in there. A couple of years back, we had like 70+ mile-an-hour winds. And even though I've got 3 brake rotors on each of the 8 posts and the whole thing strapped down, there was points in the time where my wife, my 2 sons, and I were all hanging and it was lifting us off the ground. And we were yelling because the wind was so strong. If it goes, let it go. Like don't hang on.
Yeah.
And luckily, after a period of time, it stopped. But that's what you need to prepare for. Don't be like, oh my gosh, it's going to be windy. It's too late.
Yeah.
So if I would give anybody advice, that is it. Get ready for the weather. If it's an outdoor haunt, be ready.
Yeah, we know all too well about some of that stuff. We used to do tents out in front, and those became kites instantly, like you were just talking about. So we've gone more to a wood structure, which has worked a lot better and is definitely a lot safer. But you talk about, preparing for your haunt and building it the way that you guys do. Is it different than building, of course, the Gobert's haunted house that you've constructed and designed?
Yeah, Gobert's is a little different because I have access to equipment. So I do the setup of so the haunted house is obviously inside. I flip a switch at the end of the season. I make sure that water and stuff is drained and we're done until I come back and work on it. However, their train ride is outside. So all those scenes are out and those actually get stored in one of their other buildings. So I can put a lot of that on skids. I go grab myself a skid steer. Kind of a cool perk. I got to learn how to drive a Bobcat, right? But
I was going to say, yeah.
Skid steer, and I can go put their stuff away. So I can make it as robust as I need to. I can strap it to skids. We can tie stuff down, but most of that is self-contained, just massive heavy props. Most of the stuff here is either 14 gauge or 12 gauge steel. everything I build for the Go-Birds is either 12 gauge or lower. Where it's got to be beefy, right? It can't
Right.
break mid-season, because if it does, I'm going to get a call. I don't have the time.
You're tied up.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So I do remember early on when it was my 40th birthday, and there was a huge party here, and I got a call that something had failed, and I'm like frantic because I'm like, oh my God, there's like 30 people
Oh
at my house.
no.
What am I going to do? And at the time, my dad was still alive, and so my dad and some other party goers, they actually went and brought the prop back home. And after the party ended, my 40th birthday, when my party ended, I spent the night rebuilding the prop, and it was back working in the morning. So
Happy
um,
birthday.
yeah, yeah,
Oh my
exactly.
gosh.
But no, it's good. I mean, when I build stuff, it doesn't matter for who it is. I want it to work. So I on occasion will build things and sell it to other people. But it's a relationship. I'm not a guy who's going to sell it and be like, okay, it's yours. Not at all, right? I'm going to support it. I'm going to help you program it. I'm going to help you, what sensors should you use, or why isn't it working, or almost indefinitely.
Right. I I'm this is the Goberts in Pingree Grove, right? Or have you done
Correct.
stuff at
Yeah,
the South
same
Barrington one?
family, but there's a little rivalry. So the one in
Oh,
Hoffman Estates and the one in Pingree Grove, they're brothers. I'm not allowed to help Hoffman Estates. I can go
oh,
there. I know the family. I can go spy, but I can't help them. And I joke all the time. I'll be like over at the one in Pingree Grove and be like, well, I got nothing to work on. I think I'm going to go help your brother, and they'll find stuff for me to work on. So um, it's
oh my
it's
God.
it's their own little competition on who has like the best stuff. So
That's job security when you can negotiate contracts like that between the two.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And it's just a lot of fun. In the off season I can go there, and there's a lot of perks, like you mentioned. I have the ability to store some things there. Um, we have a coffin go kart, but I live in a residential area. I've already gotten pulled
Right.
over driving the coffin go kart, so we'll bring it to the farm, and the kids will run around the farm on a coffin. Whatever, it's just good, clean fun, and no one's going to complain over there. Summertime, I'll
Not
bring the dogs and let them run around. Whatever.
not only do the police give tickets for people parking in front of fire hydrants, but they also give coffins tickets for go-karting around the street. That is, I forgot you guys
Really,
had that
really
out in
quick
front.
funny story. So I was actually end of the night. It was probably 10:30 on a Friday night. We were shutting down. It was kind of getting dead. And the coffin cars always sit at the end of the driveway with the lights on so people can see it. And it's electric. So I was going to put it away, but instead of going into the garage with it, I just spun it around and I just ripped down the street. I don't think I got 2 blocks away, and I was going to come back. And next thing I know, there's a Lake in the Hills SUV, officer next to me, and he like chirps this thing, and he looks out the window and he goes, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, I was going to put it away. I just thought I'd run down the street. And he goes, "Where do you live?" And I just look up at the guy and I go, "I'm sitting in a coffin." And
Right.
he goes, "Oh yeah." It just drove off.
Yeah, process of elimination. I mean, I don't think anybody else quite has that ride. It's a custom built. Oh my goodness. That's
Yeah,
too
again,
funny.
it's all good fun. Like I don't think unfortunately, with anything public, I mean, your haunt is the same way. The few ruin it for the many. You
True.
taking a donation might be a little easier because you're not getting people just coming to screw around. I don't have that luxury. I get people that'll come just to screw around. It's
Yeah.
I can't break your stuff, but if I push that guy and he breaks your stuff, it was an accident. So we get that.
Uh,
Because of that, we all have commercial two-way radios. All the people that are watching, myself, my wife, all the helpers. One of the actors has one, and then all of the actors are on their phone with an earbud, almost like you are. So all the actors are
oh,
in
okay.
communication, and then one actor has a radio, and then everybody has radios. Just because everything is Alexa controlled. So at the push of a button, I can kill it. And we've had that. I had some issues last year. People parking in front of the neighbor's driveway, they had to get out really quick for a minor emergency, and we couldn't find the person who parked in front of the house. There had to have been 150 people there. Really quick, when you push that button and the entire haunt goes dark, and you say it won't turn back on until the car moves, that guy does that walk of shame over to that car
Oh
really
yeah.
fast
Oh
with
yeah.
like 140 other people booing him. So, but those are just some of the things. Like people don't realize the infrastructure behind what we do.
Right.
Again, the people who start smaller, that's how we all did. But as you grow, just kind of think those things through. What are you going to do for security? What are you going to do for protection? How do you make sure that people are safe? You're inviting people to your home to have fun, but you need them to leave the same way they came, with a smile on their face.
Yeah. Well, I think we've all had those incidents too, where it's like, okay, we got to be better because safety is number one priority. So we've had a couple scares and we've learned, you know, the hard way, but in ways where, nobody still got hurt and we were just able to like come back to the table and go, okay, how do we not have this almost happen again? So yeah, that's always something that we have to watch out for as haunters. Going back to you mentioned that you're kind of counting this year, and this has a little bit to do with taking that inventory and making sure everything's working properly. That's amazing that everything on yours is set up by just one push of the button with Alexa. That is crazy. And you've given me some ideas, not only with the 3D printer stuff, but also having a book out in front for people to sign off on, which, I've signed the book myself. I should have thought about that one not a while ago, but then also having earbuds for your actors so that they can all communicate, I guess is a pretty good idea too, when you're a full production crew like yourself and kind of like we are. But
And you can't, and again, think of your own. There's probably nights where you can't see the other side because there's so many people.
right.
That's where that communication comes into play, right? Something could happen over there and you don't know about it. But at least if
Yeah.
you have actors over there, now you do.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. With that inventory though, I know you said you're counting a little bit more of the hours and stuff like that. I usually don't get into any kind of budget questions because it's sometimes a little bit more personal, but I'm so curious, how much do you think you have put into Haunt 31 over the years, whether that be money, time, or effort, blood, sweat, and tears, that kind of stuff?
So we were on fearnet.com a few years ago, Route 666, America's Scariest Home Haunts. We came in second place nationwide. We were on, gosh, there was another one. News Nation was out here last year. So National News Nation cable TV news broadcast. And they asked the same thing. So we actually took one of these binders, which is all the receipts from Halloween, and I started thumbing through it. Those are the receipts for props and for larger things that I bought, like Transworld and stuff. That's not the millions of cable ties or
Right.
that stuff. Let's just say I used to tell people we had in excess of $80,000. Now we are easily in excess of $110,000.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it's amazing how fast the stuff adds up. We were averaging $5,000 to $15,000 a year in new stuff for a period of time. We've cut back, but cutting back doesn't mean it doesn't mean that we've reduced the amount too much. I mean,
Right.
it's a sickness, right? I mean, it's a hobby, but we enjoy it. That's what we do. Our family vacations are around Halloween. I mentioned our license plates are Halloween. I mean, it's a lifestyle. And because we build so much of it, you mentioned the 12-foot skeletons. Yes, I bought 12-foot skeletons. They're unlike anyone else's anywhere because we've made them their own. All the other stuff that I build, yes, I'm putting $800 into a pneumatic prop, but I'm not spending $3,000 on a similar prop.
Right.
And I did it myself, probably better. And if it breaks, I know how to fix it. So, but yeah, it adds up really, really fast. I just spent like $360 at Menards, and it was just for more rebar, and it was for cable ties, and I'm like, how did this wood cost so much? So yeah,
I walk out of Menards and Home Depot and I look at the receipt and I'm like, this isn't even my last trip here, and we're already halfway through this budget. But if my mom is listening, no, that's not the case. I'm just saying that's totally, we're way under budget. We haven't spent a dime actually, which is crazy. We got the wood for free. Menards is having a sale.
I find a way to pay for it, and I try not to think of it. I mentioned these. So
yeah, right.
I bought 3 rolls of the filament, and they're like, because it's a copper silk color, I think they're like $22 a piece, something like that. I bought 3. Then I bought 3 more for my friend Jay, I bought 4 more for myself. 4 more arrived today. And then I decided the ones in the garage I want glow in the dark. So I bought another roll of glow in the
Oh my
dark. That was like
gosh.
19 bucks. So if you're doing the math, I don't want to know, but I know what it's not $200 just for these stupid things, but it is what it is, right?
Yeah, once you get hooked on that glow in the dark stuff for your haunt, it's so simple of an idea that we've had what glow in the dark everything since the dawn of time, but like it becomes so addicting. We have our logo that's glow in the dark for us, our sweatshirts that we made. I got one of them right here. It's an audio podcast, but for your viewing purpose, this whole
Yep.
sweatshirt, the front, I mean, it's black, but the white glows in the dark. If we put names on the back, that's all glowing as well too. So it's just the small little details is what makes it nice. So you getting the extra filament to make the glow in the dark ones, it'll make it all worth it.
Yeah. And like you've got t-shirts for our actors and helpers, and then they change each year. The first year, instead of saying staff on the back, they said stiff. The second year we just had our logo, Haunt 31, Haunt or Be Haunted. The year of COVID was the year that the two 14-foot skeletons were started talking to each other. And the person who recorded the audio was supposed to say the quagmire of desolation. And they said the quagmire of destillation, which I know is just semantics, right? But it was wrong. And the whole season we had to listen to these things talk to each other with a word that doesn't even exist. So the new shirts, and again, you mentioned you can't see it, but the new shirts, I'll say,
Oh, it says it.
Oh, you can't see it, but yeah, the quagmire of
I saw it as you
desolation on the
spun.
back, right? So it's just a joke between the people that worked the haunt that year. You're right, but all that comes at a cost. You just ignore that little portion.
Yeah.
I will say though, looking at all the lists that we're on, when people do decide to stop or they're selling props, there's a big market for them. People are getting retail, in some cases, above for the props they're selling. I refuse to sell anything that's broken or damaged unless I disclose that to you. So I think when the time comes and I'm like, you know what, we're done. Anything my son doesn't want, we're selling. I could buy a nice new car or something. I mean, we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Let's hope that that doesn't happen for our viewing pleasure. But for those that are listening and either have seen you or haven't seen you, give a list of your, off the top of your head. I actually might have it here too, if I can get to it. Your hours, dates of operation. When can everybody come see the brand new 2023 Haunt 31?
So the official 2023 is October 6th until the 31st. We go dusk until 9:30 weekdays. Friday, Saturday is dusk until 10. We typically stay open a lot later than that, but the advertised hours are those because we'd hate when people pop in at 10 and want us to keep it running until 11. Because we do have neighbors. Most of the stuff should be operational by the end of Saturday and almost everything this Sunday. So it'll be a week early. So it may not be 100%. That will be next weekend, but as early as this Sunday, it'll be running.
That's awesome. Well, we are planning to come and visit you for sure. You're always on the list. Like you said, they stay open a little bit later than the posted hours, like the professional haunted houses, and to be in that company is rightfully so. So get on over to Haunt 31. Toby, thank you for all your time. Anything else that you want to plug or mention to the viewers before I let you go?
No, I mentioned a couple different tips as we were talking about if people grow. We mentioned pneumatic props. I would say do their research if they're looking to buy an air compressor. We
Okay.
bought a pancake, and then we bought a 27-gallon, and then I bought a 60-gallon. Now I'm running 2 Quincy commercial compressors with an air dryer, and I had to upgrade my electrical. Like, just obviously you can never think about like what I've done, but if it's a difference of $100, spend the $100 so you're not upgrading later.
Absolutely.
But otherwise, no. I mean, come see us. It's always a lot of fun. Usually 1, 2, all of us are hanging out at the end of the driveway. Say hi, show us pictures of your haunt. Whatever.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're here. I'll let you get back to probably some building.
Yep. Tonight's a garage night. Yep.
Awesome. Thank you again. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks.
Welcome, foolish mortals, to Haunt 31. I'm your host, your ghost host.
Thank you again to Toby Wrolson. He and his family are the masterminds behind Haunt 31 up in Lake in the Hills. Currently recording here on Monday, October 9th, the holiday, and that we will be going out to see his house and a few other North houses tonight. In the meantime, since I have talked to you, October has started. Voodoo on Vassar, we are almost complete with our building. We open on October 19th, 7 to 9 p.m. That's a Thursday, a little Thursday action before we get into the busy weekend with that October 20th, 21st, and 22nd. The 22nd is a Sunday. We will be having a 1 to 4 p.m. Chicago Haunt Builders matinee, but it's open to anybody. If anybody wants to come by 1 to 4 p.m., it's during the day. You get to see our haunt. Maybe you have run your own haunt at night. You really don't get a chance to go out and see others. So we'll do a daytime showing. It won't be the full show, of course, but you get an idea of what Voodoo on Vassar is like in the evening. But definitely come see us in the evenings. Sundays will be our blackout nights, so we will turn off all the lights and make you go through with just a glow stick. Followed by Mondays at Voodoo on Vassar this year will be our clown takeover nights. I think that one's a little bit more self-explanatory. And then Thursday, October 26th, is going to be our bloodbath night. That will be prepared to get wet. We'll say that with blood and of course, fake blood. But we will ask that you give us any of your belongings that you don't want getting wet. We'll hold on to those until the end of the trip through the haunt, and then we'll give them back to you at the end. Wouldn't want anybody getting damaged phones, or your keys are all soaking wet when you go to stick them back in the car. And then, of course, if you wear white, it is half off your entrance. Also, since we have recorded, my Voodoo crew got a chance to go behind the scenes at HellsGate Haunted House. Former podcast guest John LaFlamboy, he had let us know that we were going to go ahead and get the behind the scenes tour after we went through HellsGate. We went through this past Saturday. Awesome show, as always. It is my favorite. I cannot stop talking about it. And then we went to the gift shop and behind the scenes. Afterwards, got to see all the cameras. I mean, the amount of security that goes into this haunt is, it's anything you would expect, knowing how, it can be these days with you need a security camera for every nook and cranny. But it was just an amazing, amazing behind the scenes tour. There's one hallway that connects all the rooms. The layout is just so intricate but simple but smart. It just, that whole building was constructed by that zombie army crew to do exactly what they needed it to do, and it works well. They have incident response time down to 15 seconds. That is just crazy. They showed us the makeup and staging areas and the costumes, and then of course the behind the scenes tour included us being able to go up into the second floor, kind of watch the show from there and see how it all works. There's a couple of different spots you can look through. You can find it on our Instagram page, Voodoo on Vassar, just to kind of see a little bit behind the scenes. But an amazing, amazing time. Thank you again to the entire zombie army and John LaFlamboy. Just an amazing Saturday evening. And of course, then you head on out into the midway after the haunt, and that's always fun as well. Don't worry, we will be back. Since then, though, actually, even before that, we saw a bunch of other haunted houses. 13th floor always opens early on. So we did that one in September. And friends of mine and Voodoo crew, we went and did Massacre Haunted House as well as Basement of the Dead, since they're so close to each other. And then I was also able to do Midnight Terror. So I'm going to give my final reviews and give all the information on all of those at the end of the month, probably even in November or December. But I've seen what now, 5 shows, I think, 5 different haunts, and I've loved all of them, of course. So everybody has done a nice job so far, and can't wait to continue tonight and throughout the next week or two before we start running Voodoo ourselves. One other quick note, we've got some movies coming out. Exorcist Believer is in theaters now. I have not seen it yet. I thought it came out on October 13th, Friday the 13th, which, yes, Friday the 13th is coming up. But in fact, it opened a week earlier. But I have it in my calendar to probably go see it this next weekend. So we'll see when I get a chance to head on out to do that. But in addition to that, Daryl Dixon, the Walking Dead spinoff show, has been going on. I've been actually catching up on the first couple episodes. I started a little bit late. It's good so far. I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but Daryl is in Europe. Durup. Daryl is in Europe, and it is a little bit different of a story than you would expect with, I think, a Daryl spinoff. I didn't expect it to go in the direction that it's going in, but so far so good. I think it's the best that Walking Dead has given us in some time. It started a little slow, but so far it's picked up. And apart from the apart from me not speaking French, it's it's been a good one to watch. And subtitles are always your friend. Other than that, I have one more interview for you all. This one is with Chad Stechly. He owns and operates Fear of the Dark right here in Schaumburg. So he is a neighbor of mine and fellow Chicago haunt builder. And I wanted to touch base with him because he has a very cool theme this year that hits a little close to home. He's doing voodoo in his lawn display. He said he credited us as the inspiration. So I'm flattered, but also excited to go out and see his very soon. So before I give away too many spoilers, let's just send it over to that interview, and I will talk to you all again at the end of the month. Welcome back to another interview on the Voodoo podcast. I am joined by a neighbor, once again, fellow haunter, fellow Chicago haunt builder, and overall a very awesome guy who's got a really cool theme this year. Hits a little close to home for us, and we love it. Welcome to the Voodoo podcast, Chad Stechly.
Hey, everybody. How you doing, Mike? Glad to be here.
Pretty good, pretty good. I like to always start with your origins with Halloween. So where did you develop your love? I see right now you've got a Nosferatu and Pennywise sweatshirt going on. So where did your love for the holiday really begin?
It goes back quite a few years. I've been haunting for over 30 years. I started doing makeup and special effects after watching Nightmare on Elm Street, and wanted to recreate all the monsters, and just growing up watching Universal monster movies on Svengoolie and Creature Feature and all that. And then I went into building and constructing haunted rooms and haunted houses for local JC chapters and that, and decorating my own front yard at the same time. I was doing like bigger displays back before it was a huge thing. And I've just been progressing, and then met the haunt builders, learned some new tricks, and been doing it ever since. So
you had told me that there was I believe it was a JC's haunted house that you made a girl pee her pants at some point. You were telling me the story.
Actually, yeah, for haunters, that's kind of like our the thing we strive for. And I actually got her to in one night 3 times. So the first time I got her even before she got in the haunted house, because I'm a line actor. So we got her in the house, and then right at the end too. And that particular night, I was dressed as the Jackal from 13 Ghosts.
Yeah,
So
I remember you telling me that. Oh my gosh. Was that a JC's? Where was that one located, that haunted house?
that one was up in Round Lake Beach. So
Okay.
I've worked on Schaumburg, Streamwood, and Round Lake Beach and Fox Lake.
Okay. All right.
So
Any connection now with Realm of Terror up there in Round Lake Beach or any kind of
no connection up there. So yeah, now I
gotcha.
have just enough time to work on my own haunt at home. So which I work
Exactly.
on all year round. Everybody's like, "Oh, when do you start?" I'm like, that would insinuate I actually stop at one point.
Right. Yeah, that is
So
getting to the point for all of us. We're even, like attending these different, especially for myself, this past year was the first year that I really kind of did year-round stuff. We mostly just start August or September and
mhm.
start the ideas flowing or just constructing and stuff like that. But I know some of you guys are really dedicated and working year-round. My co-host on the podcast, Matt Nosset, I know he's been working on his Dragula all year. So they open
Nice.
as we're recording tonight. This podcast episode will come out a little later, but we're hopefully going to get a chance to go see him this weekend too, and see his lawn. But to jump back into your haunting, you are now in Schaumburg, as you mentioned, and you are
Yes.
off of Aegean Drive, which is off of Wise, and
Mhm.
you are Fear of the Dark. Now you've gone under a couple of different names, right? Where did your home haunting names begin, and how did you come upon those?
It's actually Fear of the Dark is kind of how I was doing my costuming and the makeup stuff, and it just kind of transferred over into the haunt. And I
Okay.
actually it was like kind of like subtitles for my different years because I change my theme every year. I start from scratch and rebuild everything every year. So what you see one year, you'll never see again. You might see, a skeleton or two, but they'll be revamped into something else. No pun intended. Um, but yeah, Fear of the Dark came from the stuff that I can make and build and modify. Pretty much, I can make people's dreams and nightmares come to life. So that's how Fear of the Dark and everything that scares people in the dark, things that go bump in the night, creatures or whatever, I can create it and bring it to life.
Now,
So,
with your not to go back even further, but you said you had done other displays. Did you have
mhm.
those listed, and were there any names that people can maybe kind of connect the dots and go, "Oh, I missed that one display, and I don't know why they don't do it anymore." Well, it's because you are moved into where you're at now.
Yeah, I think the only other one that I was listed as on Illinois, hauntedillinois.com was horror movie Mayhem or something like that. That's when I did my
Okay.
70s and 80s slasher films.
Oh yeah,
So,
horror movie nights. But you guys were still
yep.
in Schaumburg for that one, right?
Oh
It
yeah,
was still
I've
the
been
same
in
address.
Schaumburg I've been decorating in Schaumburg since 2018.
Okay.
So, other than that, I was doing it in Streamwood before for many years.
Was that the same name in Streamwood, or were you under? Did you even have a listed name?
I didn't even have a listed name because I didn't even know about the haunt builders back then. So I was
Gotcha.
just, freelancing and just doing my own stuff.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, now that you're there, like you mentioned, you are pretty unique in the sense, kind of like us. As I say unique, it's kind of like us, but we have the full walkthrough. I don't know too many that do the display out in front and revamp it every year. Sure, a couple of things are moved here or there to kind of change it up. You always add things to the front lawn, but you have a different theme every year. So
Hmm.
walk me through the start of where the idea to do a different theme every year kind of started, and then also I want to get into your theme this year.
I just wanted to be unique because, when I used to help design haunted houses and haunted rooms and that, for professional haunts, you want your customers to keep coming back. So you have to kind of keep reinventing and redoing it. So everybody comes back. They're like, oh man, that's new or that's new. It keeps everybody coming back when you show them something different. I mean, but that's what I like to do. And it lets me be really creative, because I get to do something different every year. And it's like, all right, what can I do this year? What can I build? What's going to scare the crap out of people? Or, what's going to really jump out at people, and make them say, oh, cool, I'm coming back next year. So that's what it is for me, is just being creative year after year and being able to come up with, some new stuff. kind of gets, everybody's like, oh man, this is dedication. And for our group, I'm like, there's a fine line between dedication and insanity. Most of us fall on
Yeah,
the other side. It's
yeah.
because, you got like 10 projects going on, and then all of a sudden you're like, man, I need this now. And it's like, yep, got an 11 now. So, and then you're working on all 11 at the same time. So it kind of gets a little crazy, but when I see all the smiles on everybody's faces and that when they come by and they talk to me and they tell me they've been coming here for year after year, remembering what my last teams were, that's why I do it. So that's why I love doing what I do.
That's awesome. You've kind of inspired the Schaumburg community. I mean, it was really just you and Steve just Getsalitas, who we just saw at Home Depot, actually, literally an hour ago, not even. And you guys were kind of the first houses to be over here and listed. And now you see a bunch of other ones pop up. I have yet to meet the folks over on Boxwood, but I know they do a really nice light show. And then there's one over on Hartman, which is a block away from me now, too. I
Hmm.
don't think I'm forgetting anybody. I think there's what, 5 of us now in Schaumburg directly. I mean, of course, there's Streamwood and Roselle right next door, but
Right.
for the
Yeah, I think
actual
officially
Schaumburg,
there's 5 in Schaumburg, and then there's a lot of people that are decorating now that aren't part of our group and aren't listed or anything. And I see that, and it's so cool. I even have people on my block that have never decorated Halloween before. All of a sudden, one year I saw they had skeletons doing yard work. I'm like, wow, they've never had anything up before. It's really kind of cool to be an inspiring person. And even the local neighborhood kids, they're like, oh, this is so cool. We can't wait to do this when we get older. So
yeah.
it's in helping inspire a new generation of keeping, the tradition of decorating for Halloween alive. And that's what it's all about.
I think people, when I was a kid, you would start to see it firsthand, but people don't realize how much secondhand influence it does because, you always know you're coming upon one of the really nice decorated houses when you see in that same subdivision or up the block, a couple houses have, a little bit of stuff on their lawn, like they made an effort too, which is great. And you're getting closer once you see those lights to the house and you see the lawn lit up and stuff like that. So you're in the right ballpark, right? But then there's, like you said, all these kids that can't wait to do it when they're older. And that was kind of me. So it was like you don't realize how much influence and after effect you have on, generations even, which is kind of crazy to think about. Um,
Hmm.
and especially like I've said in this podcast many times, is most of my childhood seeing all this stuff was south, and I didn't know much about the northern community. Of course, you had the Huntley and Algonquin, but that was always too far for us to venture. Then when I did move to Schaumburg here, and I think we started Voodoo on Vassar really around 2013, 2014. It felt like it was us and you said you started 2018, so it would have been us and Steve, and that was about it. And now to just kind of see it grow and to know that the 3 of us are the culprits for that is pretty cool.
Yep.
But so your theme this year, like ours, we are Voodoo on Vassar. Your theme this year is Voodoo. So
Yes.
I am even intrigued, even though we literally do voodoo over here. What entails voodoo? What are your kind of themes? What should people expect to see when they come see yours this year?
Well, this year's theme is slightly, well, I want to say a little bit darker theme than my usual stuff. I try not to do a lot of gore. And like I said, we do have a lot of neighborhood kids. I don't want to scare the kids. And even though I don't have to deal with them at night, I don't want the parents to have to deal with them. And I want
Right.
them to come back year after year. So I don't want anybody to have a bad experience. So I still keep it kind of friendly, kind of, you know, cute-ish, I guess. But the theme is a little bit different. My theme this year was actually inspired by you, the Voodoo on Vassar.
All right.
So actually, this year's theme is Voodoo on the Bayou. So everything you can think of New Orleans and down south, down that way is what's entailed. I built a voodoo shack. I have the Rougarou, which is the legend of the werewolf of the swamp in New Orleans. I actually have a jazz funeral set up. So I actually have some skeletons carrying a coffin to a cemetery with a whole 4-piece jazz band and everything. I have a full cemetery, moving props with my voodoo priestess in the middle of it, summoning everything to life. And that's why everything starts moving.
Oh,
And I also
wow.
have part of Bourbon Street done, which I have the Axeman depicted there, who was a serial killer back in the 1800s back in New Orleans. So that's kind of, without getting into too much detail on what I have, that's most of it. And I have a small little swamp with a couple banjo guys and a cannibal barbecue shack, my backwoods cannibal
All right.
barbecue shack. So yeah.
Delicious. I'll be over for Sunday football games with all that barbecue you got going on over there.
You might not want to when you see what's on what's on the menu.
Yeah, it can't be any worse, although the Bears did win last night, so but it can't be any worse than the Bears this year. But yeah, that kind of would make my stomach churn a little bit. I'm learning stuff here too, because I didn't know anything about a swamp werewolf or the Axeman. I've probably heard stories and whatnot. But for
Hmm.
you to then create all this stuff, and it's a little bit off the beaten path of the typical Michael Myers, Jason, even some of your previous themes that you had before, how difficult is it for you to, as a home haunter, because like you said, you've taken the inspiration from the fact that you worked in haunted houses and had to kind of change up the theme every year. How much more difficult is it for you to be able to then change home props, decorated props each year to fit a theme? Because sometimes as haunt builders and home haunters, we are limited to what we have in the garage, and it's hard to change that
Hmm.
on the fly without a ginormous budget.
Right. Yeah, I get my resources wherever I can, like free pallets on the side of the road. I'll scavenge it. Or even it's just like that one thing like, oh, that is so cool. What am I going to use that for? I don't know. I'll use it for something eventually. And then eventually maybe you pull that out and you look at it, and that's where your theme comes from, based around that one little prop or just, one little thing that gets it going. Um, or other than that, a lot of the other props that I build, I look at it and like, all right, how can I use this for, different themes? What it could be? Like when I did my classic monsters, when I built a display for Frankenstein's laboratory, it had dials and everything on it. And the way I built it, I'm like, you know what? That kind of looks like a chair. Well, next year it was pirate theme, and that was the throne that my pirate king sat on.
Uh,
So I just repainted it and sealed everything. But yeah, I've already got the next 2 years planned out. So I'm working already and trying to figure out everything and acquiring everything and figuring out what I could reuse and what goes where.
I know you had told me that you have the next 2 years that planned out. I won't give away any spoilers unless you're willing to. But it's funny you bring up the how one prop can change your whole theme, or you can surround your whole entire theme around one prop. Because actually when we started Voodoo, I didn't have the name for it yet, and we just had one little prop that said the Crossbones Inn, and it was like a menu, and you can get it at the Dollar Tree. And I thought, oh well, nobody else will have this, even though they sell 70 of them at the dollar store. So I was like, oh, that'll be our name. And I look back now and I laugh, because that's probably such a not great name, especially compared to Voodoo on Vassar. And so many people tend to do that alliteration with their street name and such. But yeah, you're changing stuff just due to a chair, which is kind of cool. And then of course, like you said, you're already another theme throughout the haunt builders and the Halloween industry is we're kind of already on to the next thing. Like you mentioned before, we're all kind of scatterbrained in a sense where like you're like, oh, and then we could do this and we could do this, and you're already 2 years ahead of the curve here. You're already planning for 2025. I can't do math
Yep.
right now. So that's
So yeah,
awesome.
next year I've been playing with two ideas. I'm swinging towards one, but I was like, the more I keep thinking about the other idea, I'm like, man, that would be so cool. But 2025 is legit and set in stone, and it is a big year uh, for a certain movie that is close to my heart, which was one of the first horror movies I ever saw. So I actually will devolve. So 2025 is going to be Jaws themed. So it's not all the Jaws
Okay.
movies. It's going to be the first one. And so 2025, 50th anniversary, got to go big, go home, you know. So I've been planning that one for years, actually, for a couple of years. So I'm trying to acquire my stuff ahead of time and get it built. And I don't know where I'm putting all of it, but it happens.
I
So
can't wait to see that one. That one's going to be amazing. I know you were talking about it with me last year when you guys came to the our walkthrough for Voodoo during the day, which is when we met. And yeah, I mean, just the stories that you guys had, even without a voice, you guys were sharing a bunch of stories, which was great. And yeah, I'm just excited to see. I know you're a big movie buff. Other than
Mhm.
Jaws, what would you say are your top horror movies that that you may have already replicated or are looking to replicate?
Um, One of the other ones that hits close to home is the original Halloween. I'm a huge John Carpenter fan, so that his original 1978 Halloween is right up there. Jaws is up there. I'm kind of like the old school. I like the old school movies, but some of the newer ones, one of my favorites is 13 Ghosts.
Yeah.
So it's the remake, not the original in black and white, the Nick Castle one. But I actually thought about doing that as a theme, but kind of shying away from that one because some of the images that are in 13 Ghosts aren't child appropriate. So I try to keep it clean, just like this year for on Bourbon Street, I have a flasher flashing for beads, but it's a skeleton, which makes it funny because there's nothing to see. But
Right.
the adults get it. The kids don't get it, but the adults do. That's what makes it funny. But it's still, child appropriate. And going back, like you said, you learned a couple things like, the Rougarou and all that. That's what I try to do with all of my themes. I try to do, put some history and education into it. Like when I did my classic monsters, I did my whole garage door as monuments, as crypts and that, and had everybody's names on there, Bela Lugosi, Boris Karloff. And, I would tell everybody all about, each person, my diehards. I had, only one person. I had like 36 of them. I said, name every single person, what they did. And they missed one. So,
Oh
but other than
wow.
that, I would tell everybody about that. And same thing with, the classic monsters, because I had the Headless Horseman out there, and everybody's like, how is that a Universal monster? I said, no, he was actually before the Universal monsters. So, because Washington Irving wrote Headless Horseman in the 1800s, but that was before the Universal monsters came out. And then the Universal monsters came out in the 30s and 40s. And the first screen appearance of the Headless Horseman was on Ichabod Mr. Toad, which was in 1941
Oh my
on
God.
a cartoon. So that's how he kind of fit in at the same time frame as the Universal monster. So he was a classic monster in theory.
I remember
So,
the garage mausoleum. That was probably what or the crypts anyways. It was
mhm.
two years ago, I think, was it? Or did you do it last year as well?
Last year was Pirates, and the year before that was the classic monsters.
Okay, yeah,
So,
yeah, 2 years because we had come by 2 years ago. I know last year you guys had offered up. Here's a tip to all you trick or treaters: king size candy bars. If we came by on that Monday, I think it was, and it was just it started to snow, and my actors were like, let's just order a pizza and head inside. So, but we didn't make it out to you that last year, but you're right around the corner, so we're gonna make it this year. What are your hours so that people can come out and see you guys? Are you guys already running?
yeah, I started a soft opening on October 1st. I always push for October 1st, and run the whole month of October. So Sunday through Thursday is until 10 o'clock. So basically dusk till 10, or, if I get out there around, depending on when it starts getting dark. So around 5 o'clock, 5 to 10 or 6 to 10. And then on Fridays and Saturdays and Halloween open till 11 o'clock, depending. And if I got a lot of people out there, and I'll stay open a little bit longer. So.
Gotcha. That is exciting. You were at Midwest Haunters Convention with us this year, and we were talking about bubble foggers. And you were telling
Yes.
me that that you had a couple of tips and tricks on those. You were saying to just get the cheaper ones from Spirit and then load it with dollar store bubbles. Was that right? Was it the bubble solution?
Yeah, the bubble solution, I got them from the Dollar Tree. They have the 1 liter bottles. I think I bought like 6 bottles that lasted me the whole season. But yeah, that was a big hit for the kids. I was joking around last year. I'm like, I'll just get 3 bubble foggers, put them in the yard, and that's it. Kids will be ecstatic. But
I
couldn't do that. So,
I
and then
think
I
we're
even
gonna
add
get that.
yeah, and then what I do is I hit up Froggy's Fog because they have all their scent additives. You can put that in the bubble juice too, and then also in your fog. So when I do my displays, I try to hit as many of the senses as possible. I do sight, I do sound because I do atmosphere music. Whatever my theme is, I match the music to it. And I also do smell. So this year in my Cannibal Barbecue Shack as a fogger in the grill that I built. So it actually steams and it actually has barbecue pit smell in it. And then
Nice.
the rest of my swamp and that is swamp marsh. So I haven't quite
Okay.
figured out how to do taste yet without freaking people out. But
Yeah,
everybody says I hand out candy on Halloween. I'm like, okay, I'll go with that. That's my taste
that's
test.
that'll be your taste. Yeah, we don't want anything too gross. That's
Yep.
awesome though. That is a really good idea. Yeah, I remember seeing that whole wall full of scents that they had at Midwest
Hmm.
Haunters, and it is a very nice touch, and it's going to make people hungry, and they're going to want to go to the Village Tavern right up the block. So you're actually giving them some side business right there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, just like when I had my abandoned carnival, I actually had a popcorn machine with, body parts and that in there and spray foam. I had popcorn scented fog, and everybody's like, I want popcorn. I had cotton candy scented bubbles and everything else. So, and everybody's like, do you have this? I'm like, No, it's just a scent. Sorry.
Smells
So,
just like the circus. Oh my gosh.
yeah.
Well, that is awesome. We've covered. We've got your times, your dates. Am I missing something here? I feel like I am. Something big for you this year, or
Um,
even just in
no,
general.
that's about it that I can think of. I'm still adding stuff in, just like everybody's like, oh, when do you stop? I'm like October 31st. That's when I stop adding to the display. Other than that, I keep going. It's like, oh man, I could have did this. Let me do this, or just keep adding to it. I just want to add a few more lights, and I want to add a couple more things I thought of last minute. So, but yeah, so we are open, weather permitting. If it gets too rainy or cold, and it will be dark. So,
Awesome.
and
Yeah,
then
we will. We'll make it
And
out
then
to you
we
guys
actually
this year.
do, uh, you know, with all the joy that everybody gets, and like, if you enjoyed the display, we do take donations. All 100% of the donations go to Orphans of the Storm Animal Shelter in Deerfield. That's
Nice.
I picked that one because it's close, because that's where I rescued my dog from. And then we also collect non-perishable food for the Schaumburg Township Food Pantry. So we take care of everybody. And even on Halloween, I have candy for the kids. I have treats for the dogs, and usually
Nice.
something for the adults too.
All right. That
So,
is awesome. Yeah. So you're another one. I know Steve does the canned donations as well. I got to get in on that. This is our last year, and I guess this will be my announcement here. Is we haven't listed it, and I'm already listed on everything. But if anybody has any non-perishable food items that they want to donate to, they can bring them on over, and I'll work with you and Steve to get those to where they need to be. And that's a great cause. I'm a big dog guy, so I'm there for the pooches as well. Where are
mhm.
you listed? I know, of course, you're on Chicago Haunt Builders list and Haunted Illinois, but are there any others that they can find you on?
Yeah, I'm actually on the Haunted Illinois, the Chicago Haunt Builders. I am on mykidslist.com. I am
Okay.
also on chicagoparent.com. So the
Okay.
Chicago Parent magazine and that. So they have a list of the houses, and most of them have contacted me, because we get the mail, and my wife looks at the mail. She's like, this must be for you. And it's addressed to the Halloween house at 1017 AG. And I'm like, oh, yep, it's me. And then actually, I know my house is part of a road rally. I found that out a couple years ago. People were driving up and running amok, and I'm like, "What the heck is going on?" They look like clown car. Everybody's jumping out and running around, looking and everything. So finally, I asked somebody, I'm like, "Can I ask what you guys are doing?" They're like, "Oh, we're doing a Halloween road rally, and your house is a must see on this must see stops on the thing." I'm like, "Oh, cool." Well, apparently the person that does it comes out ahead of time, because last year I made a skull arch, and I see people come up. I'm like, road rally? Yeah, road rally. And they're sitting there pointing their, I'm like, can I help you? They're like, well, we got to find out how many skulls are in the arch. Oh, did
Oh.
you make this? I'm like, yeah. They're like, well, how many skulls? I'm like, I don't know. I just kept adding bones and skulls until they wouldn't fit anymore. So then I actually counted them, and I'm like, well, now you got me curious.
Yeah, right.
Ironically, it turned out to be 13 skulls in the arch,
That's too
along with all the
perfect.
extra bones and everything else. So it was kind of cool. So yeah, apparently they come out and they do some due diligence, and have everybody answer questions so they know that they actually did come here. But yeah, and I get people all the time, and I have this ladies group that comes in from Indiana every year. They're like, yeah, we come into Chicago for girls' weekend, and we always stop here. So it's really cool listening to, stories like that of everybody that stops by, not just the
Was
local neighborhood people and everything. So
was that the bus full of women that came by? Is that the ladies'
no,
room?
it's just like three ladies that come by, and they just drive in for the weekend from Indiana. They stay in Chicago, but yet they come all the way out here, and
Or
then
the
they,
haunts?
spend the rest of their time in the city. So
Nah, not too bad. That's pretty cool.
yeah,
It's funny
yeah.
you bring all that up because we had that road rage or road race thing going on over here too, and they're when they pulled up, their objective here was to find the creature defending the house, and of course we have the 12-footer right in front, and so they were just looking at our 12-footer, marking it down, and then driving away. And all of our actors are out there, and we're running over, and we're stopping the cars. We're like, "What is going on?" Come through our actual haunted house, and they were like, no, we're on a time crunch. And then I realized, okay, yeah, they have a limited amount of time to see these houses. And then but like for me and all the actors, I was like, all right, if we see them pull up, just run out there, let them know our hours, and or give them a flyer, tell them to come back when they're not doing the road race, so that they actually get
Hmm.
a chance to see our full display. Because it's one thing, I understand a lot of people can't come out on the nights that we're running and get the full effect, or fellow haunters got to come in the daytime just because they're running their own at night. But it's another thing for somebody to be doing like a scavenger hunt like that and then
Hmm.
still not get to experience the whole thing. It's like you have time after your scavenger hunt, come through, see our whole entire operation, because you look at us from the front and it's just a graveyard with the arch and a couple things in the front. We have a special surprise for our front lawn this year that I can't give away yet on a podcast, so people will just have to come visit us. And then, of course, we have the whole structure on the driveway, but you can't see in. It's just the haunted house.
Hmm.
So you actually got to come through and be brave enough to see everything that we have in store for everyone here at Voodoo as well. But to go back to that group of ladies, I think I've told it on the podcast before when we had all our actors on. We had a group full of 27 women come through in a party bus, and that was interesting because they were very inebriated by the end of the night. And we had a couple instances going back to your lady who peed her pants. We had a couple of instances where a lady was willing and ready to just drop her drawers in any room in my garage and in my backyard. And I was like, no, you can't go here. That is not a bathroom. So yeah, let's hope for that to not be the case this year.
Yep.
But yeah, that's awesome that you're listed on everything. I'll also, everybody double check those hours, get out there, see Fear of the Dark and his Voodoo on the Bayou experience this year. Are you going to get a chance to go out and see much of everything else, or are you locked down doing your own?
I'm gonna try to get out and see some of them. Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays are my biggest times, so that's when I stay home and I entertain because I usually get up and get dressed up in costume for the theme. So I'm gonna try to get out to some of the other haunts, earlier in the week, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, and that. So there's a lot of them that I've always wanted to see. I finally just got out to gyms last year after how many years? So
Yeah.
yeah, I think
Oh
the
yeah, his
farthest
is
I went
awesome.
last year was Carroll Stream, and that's not saying much for being here in Schaumburg. So I want to hit down by Lockport and all that, and even head out to Palos Hills, and so. But yeah, I'm hoping to get out to see a lot of them this year.
Gotcha. Yeah, well, come on by us. We'll swing by you. My one friend and fellow voodoo actor, Julia, her grandmother lives over by you, so she's always passing by. She's like, he's got his stuff up. So she's actually our surprise on the front lawn, but that's all I'm gonna give as far as that. So everybody will have to just come and see us in person
Alrighty
to
then.
see her whole show. But it's been great. Thank you for hopping on.
Well, thank you
We
for
will
having me.
we will come see you, and hopefully by the end of October I will be able to we're splitting October into two episodes, as the viewers are and listeners already know, but we'll be able to hit everything that we planned on hitting, and come together in November and say thank God that that's all over. Now let's get to the shindig in January.
Yep, sounds good. All right, thanks,
I will
Mike.
talk to you
Appreciate
soon,
it.
Chad. Thanks for hopping on with us.
All right, take care.